permitted properly, the use is there, you can move and don't have to wait on this.
Almost like why Meta was able to move as quickly as they were able to move in Richland Parish, because if y'all didn't know, that was a state-owned site.
Correct.
On all of that property.
Yes, and one point I would like to make on that site too, for the last 40, 30 years, it has always been advertised as heavy industrial, meaning they were looking for steel mills, they were looking for car manufacturing plants, they were looking for heavy industrial type development.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody who lived close to that site should not be surprised that something of this size and scale came there. I think they were just actually surprised that we landed something.
Yeah.
So everybody look, I've grown up in Rayville. I've known that site. We've all known about it, those in the business world, and that has always been marketed as heavy industrial because to bring jobs and everything else. But it is definitely the ripple effect of this is happening, and you know, everything that we have. Look, we get into office, and the top 3 priorities every year, it's gonna be, you know, crime, flooding, economic development. Either one of those orders, it may fall in every single year in priority. Crime, flooding, economic development, jobs, opportunities for people and families, and it's here. It's here, and it's happening. And you know, regardless of how we feel about data centers, it's the new evolution. It is the new workforce. It is going to happen. It's just like any new disruptive technology, there's always pushback. Remember when the internet came out? I'm old enough to remember when the internet came out, and they all laughed that the personal computer it's a fluke, nothing's going to happen. And it revolutionized the way that we work today, that we do things today. AI is just the next advancement in that. And when people, you know, I was in a room, DJ, I want to take a minute and talk about this. I was in a room the other day with some very, very smart people. I'm talking about people who have built titans of businesses. They didn't know what a data center does. They didn't understand why there was a need for a data center. And I tell people, I said, do you own a cell phone? Do you own a personal computer at home? They said, yeah. I said, you've got a little mini data center in your hand, and you've got one at your house. Unfortunately, it's not enough space to keep what you need. So I said, if you got a phone, you're probably a 4 to 6 to 8 megapixel, 10, 12 megapixel phone. I said, if you were to take a picture of us right now, we all take a selfie, and you were to take that file and try to upload it to first generation computer, you would crash it.
Yep.
I said, it is our own consumer habits that are driving the need for data centers. And everything you do, every picture you have on your phone, we don't have those albums anymore where you peel the little plastic back and you see your little family photos.
I kind of wish we did, though. But
yes,
but
it's all stored in a cloud. It's all stored somewhere. Every medical record file that is digitalized, every business file, your tax filings, all of it is digitalized, that it has to be stored somewhere. And it's this, I equate it to the mall, right? And it's weird, follow me here. People wonder why malls across the country are failing. It's because of our own consumer habits that have created, you know, our shopping habits, that we have things at our doorstep now. Why do I have to drive 3 miles to go to a mall and shop when I can just order it and get it here the next day? And we wonder why brick and mortars are failing across the country. And it's the same way with data centers, and the same way with data. Our own consumer habits are driving the fact that we need more data to operate. Your phone's at a higher megapixel. You want things to move faster. Businesses, everything is digitalized. The technology you have in your cars, in the medical field, in science, everything needs data and storage. And the more we as businesses and individuals consume this data will drive the way that these places have to get stored. And so if you don't know what a data center is, educate yourself on what a data center is. Understand why there is a need for it, because they're not going away. That technology may change to where you don't need a big building anymore. it is going to be here with us for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then I will ask you to go further. There is a reason why every world leader is putting their stake down in global dominance in data centers, because ultimately that is national security issue as well, right?
Yep.
And if you don't understand why it's a national security issue, I would say educate yourself, because there's not enough time on this podcast to go into it.
Just go use it one time. Go use AI one time. Ask it a question that you don't think it can answer, and when it spits that answer out in less than 10 seconds, let that know that you're very, very novice in this, with someone that has the skill set to create and design this, can get in there and ask. Because all it is, and I told Harrison this the other day, all AI is, it's like teaching kindergartners how to read.
Yeah.
The more information you can give them, the more information you're going to get back from it.
Yeah.
And so, you have to be very, very novice in the beginning.
Yeah.
But when you start building, it's again like educating. It's the same, like each individual one. It's like educating a kid. The more you pour into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And again, all of that stuff has to be stored.
And we're in our first. Remember, folks, we're in our first. I say first, really our second gen phase of this. Just like you have old technology, a lot of that old technology, whether it be, let's just say, I'll give you another example, like HVAC, older units used more power. They weren't so efficient, right? This is going to evolve. Ultimately, the power requirements are going to be less and less, or either there's a new form of power generation that doesn't cost us the same amount of money as it takes to get to the finish line or cross the finish line. We're talking mini reactors now to power these things. You're talking more ways that you can be able to do this with less impact and cost to the consumer, but to the business that's trying to build it, or the utility company trying to build it. The technology will advance along with this development. But I know we're spending a lot of time on AI, but I mean it's the new reality of our world. And I will say this: if there are those who think that Hyperon data center in Richland Parish is going to go away, I would ask you to do your research on Hyperon, Titan, and Prometheus. If you haven't heard those words, those are the three main campuses that Meta is building the backbone or the central nervous system to their future development on, meaning these are their flagship. They are chips all into these three campuses, and they're betting the future of their company on it, and they chose to be here. And so for those who, there may be some horror stories out there for communities that, somebody has came in or they've had one for a few years and it shut down. There's nothing of this scale in this investment by another company that's going to do that.
Yeah, it's very. There's a lot of different, and I learned this. There's a lot of different types of data centers. There's a lot of different types of ways to build them. There's a lot of different ways that they are put together. The pieces are put together on these projects, and you have some of them are like this, where they're basically back-end computer systems for a larger company. Some of them are, cryptocurrency mining, and which those are the ones that kind of open and shut down. Those are very financially driven. Once they don't make money, shut it down. But then, a lot of it, there's a lot of different opportunities. For me, being from South Louisiana, I'm from St. James Parish, and there's a whole contingency down there that fights against chemical plants, oil and gas plants, things locating on the Mississippi River. But when I was 10, we moved to Ascension Parish, and in Geismar, where my dad worked at Shell Chemical. In the time I was 10 to the time I moved out when I was 19, I believe there was 30 plus new plants that located there. There was Ascension Parish struggles with the problem that they have more jobs than they have people. Although the populace around them is okay. Like if we had more jobs than we had people here, we'd be in a real bind. There, they're able to maintain because it's St. James and Livingston and West Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge all around them. But from Ascension Parish being overpopulated with job growth to St. James Parish right next door, you have it's kind of the same contingency we have, where there's a group of people that are fighting tooth and nail against any kind of growth. And the only thing I can equate it to here is that it's what we went through with those changes in Grow Neal. It's like people were scared to change. I can understand some of the environmental aspects of it. but also in the same breath, in those environmental aspects, you can't just make things up and say this is what's going to happen when you don't actually know.
Yeah, well, I would always say those who are concerned about environmental concerns, I didn't hear you. Where were you in Richland Parish when for the last 50, 60 years, they've been spraying defoliant over these folks' houses and pumping the ground full of fertilizer for these crops? And I mean, look, two things can be true at the same time, and I think that's kind of where we're sideways in this community about it. I think there are a lot of people, and I'm not saying their concerns are not legitimate. They really, if it's a true concern for you, it's a legitimate concern because, again, it can only be said from somebody who grew up in that community. They have questions and they would like answers because they're really concerned about what the future of their community is going to look like, right? There are people that really love where they come from. They're proud of their community and they love living a quiet life. Okay, they probably worked their tail off their whole lives and they wanted to live a quiet life, right? And they want to know what the next 10, 15 years is going to look like for their family located around. And right now, under construction, it really is. There's a lot of traffic, right? There's a lot of noise. And I would just say that it is that is a real concern for folks who live there. So not pushing those concerns aside. I think the other concerns that I'm hearing is that a lot of people just felt blindsided by the investment, meaning that they didn't know a data center was coming there, right? And they didn't know, and so I heard the need to be like, hey, we would like to be more informed about the type of investments that will be coming our way. So those are things that are noted, but the other thing that we have to deal with is the reality that this is not going to go away, right? So it's here. And if you're constantly stuck on issues that but people can't go back and fix for this one, and potentially, you could fix it for the next one, but recognizing that, hey, whenever there's a new investment, maybe there's a different way to do it, but also realizing that this investment right here is real. How do we now take this and make it the best that we can make it, right? And you know me, I'm always an eternal optimist. I always try to see the best and see a way out. DJ will tell you, I'll let a dog bite me 6 times before I realize that you ain't petting that dog. But because I'm always going to do whatever I can to make that situation work, regardless of the hand that you're dealt, right? And what our job as leaders are now is to connect, in my opinion, is to connect as many locals as we can to opportunities on that job for now and for the future of this development, the remainder of this development, so our people don't miss out on opportunities. Now, are there going to be people, and I said this as soon as this announcement made, and you've heard me say it multiple times, are there going to be people who bet the farm on this and spend every dollar they have to do something to try to get connected and can't scale to the size of the project? Yes, that is a risk every business owner takes whenever they bet the farm. Look, every dollar I had went into a cigar shop in Monroe, where 8% of your industry standard will tell you that you're marketing to 8% of your total population. That was a rough market, right? And so, but we made it work. The same way with you. Your investments were risks. All of these investments were risks, but that's the U.S. free market. You're not guaranteed to get a contract. You're not guaranteed to get this. And there are stories where I'm already hearing where people are like, look, we were all in, but we couldn't scale our business to fit the needs of this, and we lost out. But that is a risk that
there's a couple I've heard, just I don't want to say horror stories. Just companies like, hey, we'd like to do this, and okay, cool. How many employees do you have? Oh, we have 8. Okay, cool. This is a billion with a B dollar contract. You're going to need at least this many, and you're going to need this much money in the bank. Can you do that?
Or you need to be insured for a certain amount. Right. You've got to have, and I think that is a tough conversation to have, but it has to be had. and for every new venture, there is a risk, and there's never a guarantee that you're going to make it. However, getting connected to your chambers of commerce, letting them understand your capabilities, having those conversations. And a lot of times DJ, I've heard some very good, stories about people who didn't have the capacity, who partnered with their competition or people in there, and they came together to be able to work together to handle something. And so, it's just about figuring out ways to be successful. But again, this is no doubt that this is changing so many opportunities and lives in our region. I mean, I see people at the store all the time. As a matter of fact, my wife and I were at TJ Maxx the other day, and I was just talking to a guy. We were just shopping, and I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Hey," he's like, "You're the mayor, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said something about, man, he said, "There's lots going on around here." He said, "I was driving trucks for somebody," and he's like tripled his income now, and he's about to be an independent contractor, contracted directly. So going from working from somebody to going to be able to, hey, buy a couple trucks for myself, and I've got a contract directly. I mean, this was a young man who was just, he got in, he found opportunity, he was able to scale. And you keep hearing some really good stories. Same way, I've got another friend of mine. They own a haul-off business, and you had 2 tech graduates that were like, hey, they paid for these 2 tech graduates to go get their CDL to go drive out there, and eventually these 2 tech graduates are wanting to go and start their own company in trucking, and follow these things around the country, and they're out there making gobs of money right now, living their best life and the thing that they wanted to do, and they're making more money right now than the average salary of the person in the degree that they got from tech, doing something completely different. And that's just that, as you say, these are young folks that are.
We've equated these opportunities coming kind of as that. There was a natural gas boom here in the 40s. This is kind of the remaking of that. And again, that was 80 years ago. Yeah. And here we are 80 years. There's still remnants of the money that was made then that is still being spent in our community. Yeah. 80, 100 years from now, we'll talk about the amount of families that were able to grow. Now, here we are 80, 100 years ago. From that last boom, you're not talking about the ones that did fail. There are companies that are going to fail. And you can look, as someone that felt like they were doing everything right, you have one major hiccup and everything can go. I mean, that is the nature of being an entrepreneur and being your own boss. Yeah. But also in the same breath, we say it here, you're not going to play in the game if you don't put yourself in the game. Yep. Right? If you don't give yourself the opportunity to see if you can or can't, you never will know.
If you don't give yourself the opportunity to fail, you know how many, it's like, I don't know. I think so many people are afraid to fail. And I think the majority of that is because they're a fear of what other people will think about them and maybe think of them as a failure. But I could tell you this right now, like, most millionaires, if you kind of follow, most millionaires are made in their like late 40s, early 50s after they failed at all kinds of other things. I say failed, but really didn't have these big, what do you call it?
It wasn't a silver spoon and just, launched and won. I've said this a lot, the wisdom was just a word to me. It's something I thought I would learn one day. But the wisdom I've gained in the last 5 years, that the education I got working at City Hall. Yeah. The things that you and I sitting in a coffee shop, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, you can't do it that way. Yeah. You got to do it this way. You got the education I got there, the education I got from my businesses closing, that the wisdom I have gained. And it makes sense to me now why so many in their later 40s figure it out because you learn what not to do. Yeah. Right. And that was a lot of what not to do for me. And it's the opportunities here that are being presented. I think right now the shiny diamond in the deal is data centers. But to me, what's going to come around that, because you have the movement going on, because there's construction labor and constant construction going on for the next 5-10 years, the other companies are going to be like, hey, nobody wants to be first, but nobody wants to be last.
Yeah. Well, DJ, if you think about it, okay, so I give people this example all the time, and this is the thing that a lot of folks, they're so wrapped up around data centers that they forget that they are the engines to technology advancements that we use every single day, right? I tell people I have a pair of Meta glasses and I've lost. Fun fact, I've lost 2 pairs.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
I hope whoever's got them, they're enjoying them at least anyway, because they are great. And but I've lost 2 pair, and my wife has banned me from getting another pair. But however, you know, it's amazing to me the advancements in technology and like life. How do you say it? It's a quality of life piece that I had. Like I would be walking through DC and I just be like, "Hey, Meta, what is the International Monetary Fund, and tell me more about it." Or I'll go by and just be curious, and it fed my curiosity about things, and it'll help me